Hello friends, this is me, Mahvesh, your host. Welcome back to our YouTube channel, Best Book for You. I hope you guys are doing well, and today I am back with another video with another book. Today I'm going to read book All Good Things by Amanda Prose. In this captivating story from the best-selling author of Picking Up the Pieces, Daisy has always envied the perfect family next door. But will a weekend of unexpected drama prove that the grass isn't always greener? Daisy Harrop has always felt like she exists in the background, and since her mother stopped getting out of bed, her life has come to a complete standstill. Daisy would give anything to leave the shabbiest house on the street and be more like the golden galleries next door. With a perfectly raked driveway and flourishing rose garden. Winnie Calloway is proud of the beautiful family she's built. They have had the ups and downs, hasn't everyone? But this weekend, celebrating her golden wedding anniversary, is truly proof of their happiness, a joyful gathering for all the neighbors to see. But as the festivities get underway, are the cracks in the perfect Callaway life beginning to show? As one bombshell revelation leads to another, and events start to spiral out of control. Daisy and Winnie are about to discover that things aren't always what they seem. So it's a very exciting or a little dramatic story. I hope you guys going to love it. I'm not going to read the full book. I'm just sharing a little bit of story about it, so you guys could have an idea that which type of houses book. Okay, let's move toward it. Daisy Harrow stepped over the welcome mat in the hallway with an ironic twist to her mouth. The mat, thick with dust, covered in clumps of mud and bald in places, was not really that welcoming. She picked up the hand-delivered letter addressed to her parents from the floor. Admiring the official-looking council crest before placing it on top of the old school box in the corner. That being the stop where mail was left for collection and recycling items, nested until they were grabbed and plopped in the appropriate bins. Popping her soft mustard-colored beret on her head at a jaunty angle and tying her cotton scarf in a natty knot, she opened the front door. The sky was blue, even as the day crawled towards night. "See you later," she called out to whoever might be listening, and wasn't surprised to receive no response. She did this, found a jolly voice that wouldn't be amiss in an advert or movie, as if saying things in this particular way might make her life more like an advert or movie. So far, as a strategy, it had proved unsuccessful. There was no bashful yet keen boyfriend on the scene. No lovely apartment with a balcony and a view. No spare cash. No happy ending where she got to laugh with her good looking friends as catchy music played and she danced off into the sunset. It's our anniversary, she had heard Mrs. Galway, Cassian's gran, exclaim as she took the vast bunch of flowers into her arms. Can you believe he still does this after 40 years married? She laughed. I am one lucky lady. Daisy couldn't imagine her dad buying her mom flowers at any stage. Maybe that was what was wrong with them. She pictured him arriving home with a handful of daps and her mom busting out a happy dance before slipping into his arms. Nope. She shook her head, knowing it would take more than a fancy bouquet to thaw out her frosty parents. They hadn't always been this way. She could recall pockets of laughter coming from them on the sofa and had even caught them kissing one Sunday in the kitchen. She remembered the way they had sprung apart, blushing and laughing like teens. It wasn't easy living in a house where someone had depression. It threw its cloak over them all, and it was shocking how quickly the home life had disintegrated once one of the four pillars had crumbled, leaving her, Jake and their dad listening, tilted and clinging on, weary of the fall. So no, with so much to worry about, her parents' less than conjugal marriage didn't upset her pursuit, not anymore. Like every other aspect of her life, it was just how it was. Not that she could see that happening anytime soon. What with house pricing going so crazy, even rental cost felt unattainable for someone like her who, instead of paving a way for a deposit, planned on being a student long after she finished school. The financial world for her generation was a harsh and daunting one, and there was a lot to contend with. Student debt, the soaring cost of living, interest rate hikes, and competition for jobs, to name but a few. She swallowed the bitter thought that she might actually be living at home forever. Oh, she shuddered at the thought. With no sign of Cassian next door, she let her stomach relax, vowing to cut down on pasta and eat more salad. Determined in that moment to get the kind of body that a boy like Cassian might desire. Lawrence, Cassian's dad, often parked his shiny Mercedes in the driveway, next to his dad's fancy electric Audi. The only other time she saw car this pristine was in the window of the showrooms on the outskirts of town. But this was the Galloways all over. Everything they owned and the way they did things was perfect and shiny. Lisa was her mum, and yet sometimes even she found they had nothing to say to each other. This fact alone sent shivers of sorrow through her limbs. How she hated those moments when her mum would stare at her, silently pleading as if she needed something urgently. And yet their words were calm and predictable. You okay, Mom? Yup, her whispered response. They had then stared at each other for a beat or two, both entirely helpless, mute, and floundering. Daisy didn't know what it was her mum needed, didn't know how to make it better, and her mum, it seemed, felt the same. In these situations, she often imagined how much easier it would be if her mum's peril were more apparent. She's fallen in through her a life preserver. She's on the very edge. Secure her with a rope. Fire, fire. I need a bucket of water over here right now. But it was not apparent. And this was why they engaged in the silent, desperate dance of stillness that left Daisy feeling sometimes like she might be on the very edge and in need of securing with a rope. Every street had a dwelling like theirs, one in the grip of decay or decorated with questionable taste. How she hated that it was their house. All good things come to those who wait. God, she hoped so. Am I praying to you two to stand and chat? Carlo called through the doors. Stone jovial, but with something sincere in his words. He was always a little antsy when they were fully booked. A bit like pre-show nerves. I can't remember the last time you paid me anything, Yana shouted, wanting to make Daisy laugh. She suspected. Feeling a bit better, Daisy? He asked with a look of concern. Much, she lied. Good, good. He breathed a sigh of relief. Because it's going to be one hell of a night. Winnie Calloway sat perched on the velvet stool in front of a triptych of gilt-edged mirrors and pulled up her chin, running her hand over the crepe of her neck, rubbing in where she had dotted the thick moisturizing cream that she hoped might help keep the years at bay. And actually, she liked what she saw. There was none of this negative self-hate she knew dodged some women. If anything, she was the opposite, brimming with satisfaction. Sure, her hair was graying, although a monthly visit to her hairdresser put paid to that. And to the woman on TV, who had said that a facelift was the best gift anyone in their 50s could give themselves. Well, Winnie certainly owed her a drink. Everyone said she looked 20 years younger. Oh, stop it, you. She had batted away their words, while joy at the compliment pinched in her veins. Aware of their flattery, she knew it was more like 10. But hey, she had taken it. Dressing impeccably had always been important to her, and this standard was as vital as ever. Now her 70s looked on the horizon. Only this afternoon, she had spent the best part of half an hour deciding which wrap to place about her shoulders this evening. The sage, the mocha, the plum. Having watched her parents struggle, she saw how a lack of finances pulled even the most dedicated of love thin. How even the fairest sunset could turn grey when bills went unpaid, and how pitiful it was when anything made of fabric was torn and mended until it disintegrated under the lightest touch. She figured life would be infinitely more comfortable if she lived it with a cushion of cash to soften the blows she would inevitably be dealt. She wanted a more substantial life. Almost by reflex, her hand shot to the locket in which sat the only two pictures of Louis. One taken of him in her arms. She could still recall the skin-to-skin contact if she closed her eyes. And the other of his face, close up, tiny fist curled at his face, born sleeping. Leaving in 10, darling. Bernie called up the stairs. Nearly ready, she shouted over her shoulder. This was one of the bits she enjoyed the most. The excited anticipation of the evening ahead. How she loved to have her family all together on shore. Wherever they gathered, they stood out like bright beacons among the gloom. Not that it was intentional. They just knew how to dress, what cologne to wear, and how much. The right level of conversation, and oh, the laughter. Cassian Calloway, seated in the back of his dad's Mercedes, studied his hands. His fingers were overly long, but his skin smooth and nails a good shape. His dad's hands, in contrast, were scarred with veins bulging on the back. unsightly clumps of hair sprouting above his knuckles, and there was an indent in his thumb, the result of a bike chain incident in his youth, the telling of which had made Cassian feel a little sick. He might grow old and ugly, but he hoped his hands would stay this way. After all, they would touch the skin of someone he loved, shake hands with strangers, make a home, paint pictures, hold babies. Who knew what else? Not that he could paint. They stopped started in the traffic. How he hated the weighted silence inside the car. Other than the fan of the air conditioning humming loudly, there was nothing. He swallowed the lump that rose in his throat, keeping it all at bay. Unsure how to mourn all they had lost. "It's green, you old idiot!" His dad's words drew him sharply from his thoughts, shattering the quiet, but not in any way that Cassian had hoped. "What you are waiting for? A written invitation? Go! Go, go, you moron!" He then made a showing motion with his hands, calling and gesturing to the car in front, who had slowed a little. His dad's words and volume made Cassian's stomach shrink. His dad was now breathing loudly through his nose, and his mom stared out of the side window with her precious handbag on her lap and her fingers over her mouth, as if deep in thought. Everyone wrote, although peaceful. Personally, he didn't find it that funny, especially at the third time of telling. This evening, however, was not about him. It was about his nan and granddad having the best time possible. He would make the most of it, smile when needed, chat when required, and get through it. He turned to face his mom, ready to walk her in, offer his arm, make sure she was accompanied. The look on her face was serious as she stared at the laughing Galloways, as if she was part of it, but not part of it. And as they made their way en masse into the Italian restaurant, he understood. Daisy swept the floor, filled the salt and pepper pots on the tables, and wiped dust from the neck of some of the wine bottles that were for display only behind the narrow, dark wood bar. She closed her eyes and tried to control her nerves. She owed Diana and Carlo more than to be some tethering wreck all evening. And just like that, the bell above the door rang, and in they walked the perfect Galloways. As if it was a movie clip, they entered in slow-mo, the whole crew, Mr. Bernie Calloway and his bouquet-receiving wife, Winnie, who had known Daisy since before she was born, as the woman was fond of reminding her. Lauren's younger sister, Cleo, and her husband George, who was carrying a stunning ornately decorated cake, which Carlo carefully took from him and placed on the bar. Finally, Lawrence and Jolie's children. This pretty daughter, Domino, was in the year below her at school and seemed to rarely speak. Daisy had heard whispers in the lunch queue that the girl had a reputation as a bit of a rebel, a party girl, but she very much doubted the accuracy of this information. To her, she seemed a little timid, a little unsure, and Daisy hated how the rumor mill, often churning out misinformation, could malign someone in this way. Daisy, Mrs. Galloway called loudly, her smile wide as she waved. "Hello, lovey. We were hoping you had been on tonight," I said to Bernie. "I do hope it's a Daisy's night. And here you are." "She's working, Winnie. Don't distract her." Mr. Calloway tooted and smiled at her. Lovely Mr. Calloway, who she liked to watch in the garden from her bedroom window, taking his time, snapping the dead leaves and heads from his rose bush one cut at a time as he chatted on his phone. Their own backyard was a little threadbare. The grass was sparse, flower beds devoid of flowers and groaning with weeds. Caring for the garden had also come to a halt when her mom stopped caring for herself. Daisy was reluctant to step in and take the task over. The evening was passing quickly. This service was a well-rehearsed dance that saw Gianna dishing up the food, dressing the plates, and she, Carlo, delivering it, while serving wine, pouring drinks, offering menu options, and encouraging dessert. The restaurant might have been busy with couples holding hands next to the guttering tea lights, with stomachs full of sauce-coated pasta, and the mellow house red. But Daisy could only hear the burble of conversation that hung in an enticing cloud over the gallows. They were for her a fascination. "Look at him, he's so handsome." Mrs. Calloway pointed at Cassian, who slunk down in his chair, closing his eyes as if praying she would be quiet. Daisy thought it was sweet. Leave him alone, Mum." She liked how Lawrence stood up for his son. "Leave him alone? I'm only saying how handsome he is. I bet you have got all the girls chasing after you, haven't you, Cass? Daisy felt the air rush from her lungs. She held her breath, her finger poised over the computer, about to print the bill for table 9. But she was paralyzed, wanting more than anything to hear Kajan's response, and feeling like she might throw up again as the cold film of sweat doused her. Daisy felt the lens of envy go through her core. What must it feel like to be part of a family like this? A family who ate in restaurants together, who laughed and loved together. She tried to imagine her dad and his older brother Keith engaging in this way. Weird Keith, who collected bird books and counted his carrots before he ate them. Then she thought of her mom, whose every syllable dripped with sadness as she whispered from within the confines of her fleecy blanket, seeming to feel the cold even on a sun-filled June day like today. She hoped Gianna was right. She prayed that her future was something shiny and glorious, imagining in that moment being coupled with Cassian, which would mean that she was part of this glorious unit, a Calloway. If only. Suddenly thoughts of her and him in that hot tub filled her mind, with dusk now having given way to the dark of evening. Only one table was still occupied, and Daisy noted that her tips were low. She wasn't surprised. After all, who wanted to dine like a sport act while all attention in the whole room was dominated by the perfect Galloways? Standing on the first stair, the letter from the council caught her eye, now propped up on the hall stand opposite, a relic from her gran. She could see that it had been opened, and her heart beat quickly. It felt a little as if things were unraveling. First, one of her beloved oaks could be lost, and now Gianna and Carlo too. She closed her eyes and felt her way up the stairs, thinking that if she could block out the thoughts, they might not trouble her. "Come on, you," she spoke softly to Cassian as she gathered her mulberry handbag to her chest. Still, after 7 years of ownership, loving the feel of it against her skin. Its delicate ivory tone, perfect for all the seasons, in the brass logo plate, still gave her a shudder of delight when she ran her thumb over it. It had been a present for her birthday, a total surprise, and she smiled now to think of that glorious day when Lawrence had presented her with the fancy parcel, tied with a white ribbon. "What is it?" She held her breath, excited. "Something beautiful for my beautiful wife." his words only cementing the perfect point in their wonderful life. A quick shake of her head shifted the memory, which right now was almost too painful to consider. It's okay, Jules. Keep it together. Keep smiling. Keep walking. It's all going to be okay. She did this, repeated small reminders, keeping her interior monologue as supportive and positive as possible. It helped. She placed her hand on her son's shoulder, knowing how he hated the spectacle of walking along with his family and Masse. And she understood a little. Like any bubble-decked herd, as they left the restaurant, they took up a lot of space and made more noise than was comfortable. A fanfare, an exhibition. Her phone beeped. She looked at the message. An alert from eBay. One of her listed items had sold. Used mulberry handbag. Ivory colored leather. Good condition. Running her hand over the soft leather, she felt the threat of tears again. This bag, the nicest thing he had ever bought her, and he had given it with promises of a rosy future. And here she was, sitting in a lay-by outside the shop, wondering how she was going to return to her in-laws and explain her lack of chocolates. How she was going to calmly look Lawrence in the eye and not scream at him there and then. 150 quid. My last 150 quid. What in the world did you need it for? That was more important than food for our family, you idiot. But of course, she wouldn't. Because they were the Calloways. She was married to the golden boy, Mr. Moneybags, and ultimately, she didn't want to make a fuss that might upset her kids, wanting to keep the true desperation of their situation from them. Yes, this she would do until she had absolutely no choice other than to bring a hammer down on all they thought was solid and secure, shattering it into fragments that she knew would never again fit back together in a quite the same way. And this she knew because this was what happened when they left Australia. They were, as a family, changed in shape, chipped, cracked, and less robust, fragile almost. Instead, she had walked into the house where the family, mid-celebration, waited for her. Make up some excuse about being dizzy and in an attempt to keep her controlling mother-in-law happy. Eat some bloody cheese. Domino Calloway hugged her Nan tightly. I don't know. First Auntie Cleo and now you, Dom. My guests are dropping like flies. I thought we had been dancing till dawn. Sorry, Nan, Domino whispered. You don't have to be sorry, my darling. I don't know many young girls who would study this late on a Friday night. Don't overdo it and don't go to bed too late. Your sleep is important. I won't, I promise. Her nan pulled away and searched her face. You make us all so proud. You really do. Her granddad gymmed. Now, I know you are not a baby, he winked. But your nan's right. You make us all so proud. Can we give you some sweetie money? He reached into his pocket where his slim brown folded wallet lived and peeled out two 20-pound notes. Her mom had been quiet all evening. Well, she was not going to let her mother's bad mood spoil her Friday night. What was it with old people who didn't know how to live? She was never, ever going to be like that. She gave a final small wave and walked slowly from the garden through the overdone house, where a lack of taste had never stopped her grandparents from making endless home improvements, and across the gravel driveway. From the corner of her eye, she saw the sway of net curtain from the side window of the house next door where Jake and his loser sister Daisy lived. For some reason, the horror at something so seemingly minor in comparison to the shitstorm that was her life struck her as funny, and a small giggle started from her before a small building into laughter that Essie and Ruby matched. Pretty soon, all three howled their laughter, wiping tears and clinging to each other as they fell back onto the damp grass of the verge. It's Friday night, Essie yelled between the laughter, and we are lying in a ditch. This set them all off again. Eventually, Domino sat up and wiped her face with the back of her palm. Enough. Enough tears. Enough sadness. Izzy was right. It was Friday night. They were young and pretty, and life was for living. This was far better than letting any deep-seated worries over her family situation drag her down. She would bury her melancholy under a neat padding of vodka, laughter, and music. Lisa Harrop glanced at the clock on the bedside table. It had just gone 11 o'clock. She had listened to Daisy climb the stairs and felt her shoulders slump against the pillows. Resting easier knowing her daughter was home safely. It worried her, her little girl travelling about on the roads on that rickety old bike. She had read some terrible stories in recent years about cyclists sideswiped and crushed under lorries or injured when they fell and hit their heads. The TV was on in the bedroom. It was company for her of sorts, a visual machine that helped eat up the seconds, minutes, hours of time that she was keen to kill. Lying back on the mattress, she looked up at the ceiling where a water splat from the leaking header tank some months ago had formed an image that she thought looked similar to a map. It was her eyes closed, transporting herself to a hot country where she would live a beach life, eat well, throw on shorts, and walk outdoors. A place far away from this house and this life that held her in its grip, like a fly caught in a trickle pot trap of her own making. I'm sorry, my darling girl. I'm so sorry. I want to be better, but it's like living on a knife edge, waiting for my whole world to come crashing down. She heard Daisy's bedroom door close as Jake's opened, and she listened to the rhythmical padding of his feet on the wooden stairs. Sometimes she considered that it might be better to have a turnstile fitted instead of a front door. There was always someone coming in or going out. Everyone, it seemed, lived their life behind closed doors, nipping out when they needed air, light, sustenance, or interaction, holding secret lives close to their chests. She heard the underlying note of glee, and it galled her. She took another step back towards the wall, just as his hand came through the gap, reaching for her, grasping in the darkness. With her arms by her side, she sidled along the wall, back to the door that led to her crappy kitchen, where her kids ate microwave meals alone and her husband pulled cold cans of cider from the depths of the fridge, his company and his solace. "Please, Lee," he begged. "Please come back. I need to talk to you. I need you." "Goodbye, Laurie," she whispered, caring little whether the words reached his ears or not, but knowing it was a phrase that was long overdue. Kayan sat at the table in his grandparents' garden. He looked up into the inky June sky that still held warmth, his eyes drawn by the brightest stars. This kind of night, this kind of light, reminded him of Melbourne. Sitting now next to his granddad, who had fallen forward slightly, supporting his head in his hands and with his speech somewhat slurred. He felt more than a little uncomfortable. He didn't want to be babysitting his drunken grandpa tonight. Or any night, come to think of it. Bernie had started to waffle, as if joy was now dimmed by the veil of melancholy alcohol like to throw over you when its novelty wore off. They will take the tree, you know. Bernie raised his voice to make the assertion. They will take the bloody tree, and the truth is, I love the tree. He nodded, eyes closed. I do. Boy, I love it. I love them all. And the thought of there only being three? It's crazy talk. Winnie's right. He slammed his hand onto the tabletop. But I know I need to keep calm and say it doesn't matter, or your Nan will get right. That's my job, you see, to keep her calm, to be the steadying voice. Yes, Mom's got that job in her house. He thought of how she would let his dad rant, nodding quietly, sagely, as if she understood that he needed to get it all out of his system. He thought it must be wearing, having to be so desultory. It's not easy, son. None of it's easy, his granddad babbled. What isn't? It was hard to make out the words now, directed towards the tabletop in a low mumble. Life. Life isn't easy. He looked up. Where is everyone? Where did they go? His eyes darted around the tables, as if only just realizing that the guests had thinned. Cajun had watched the family dwindle. First Auntie Cleo and George had left, and then Domino off to study with her friend Ruby. Yeah, right. He found it incredible how his little sister lied and his family just ate it up. It never occurred to them to question sweet Domino, who never put a foot wrong. It was a joke. Let's grab some beers. I think the garden's empty. We can go sit out there. He changed the topic. Hot tub. Jake slammed his hands together loudly, his expressions and tone bursting with enthusiasm for his idea. The very thought made Cajuan's stomach fall with dread. The hot tub with Jake? If there were people around, it would be like putting a starving man at a feast-laden table and forbidding him to eat. And Cajuan, who had not come out to anyone, let alone his family, and who was still processing the fact for himself, knew that for tonight, in where Jake was concerned, he would have to stay hungry. Julie stood in the bedroom and listened as Lawrence showered. He had made clear his intention to go straight to his mom's to be part of the new baby celebration. His mood she could best describe as ebullient, which, when she considered the dagger-like pain that split her chest in two, only served to irritate and distress her. If there was a better metaphor for how he caused such pain, such disruption, and then sauntered on as if nothing was amiss, she was hard pushed to think of it. She could hear him whistling now, and it made the hair on her arms bristle. She stared at the wall. How to explain this numbness? Was she in shock? Quite possibly. Lisa. Lisa next door. Depressed Lisa. 3 years ago, she had done as he asked. Packed a bag, crawled the kids, answered their questions as best she could, watched as their few belongings were bundled into the trunk of the car. She had then tried to keep the mood light, still in the dark as to exactly what they were running from and why. As her husband drove them a little erratically along the coast to Geelong, it felt like hiding out, and his jumpiness was infectious. But it was all an illusion. Like it or not, she was part of a crazy world that she could not even imagine. A dangerous world that was like nothing she had known, and one that filled her with a fear so real that even concentration of it made it hard to sleep and impossible to eat. Compliant, she had done his bidding. He hadn't had the decency to consult or discuss the move with her, and his implicit instruction left her feeling diminished, like an employee, or worse, his charge. He had almost beamed when he had said, "We are going home." Like a con artist, a confidence trickster who employed simple tactics to make you believe it was what was intended all along. But a good thing, selling the idea with such conviction. It was easy to get swept up in it. She and Cajon turned to see Domino, who stood at the top of the stairs in her dressing gown. An eye mask had been pulled up onto her forehead, and her expression was one of fury at having her hangover disturbed. "Dom, there you are. This man's come from the car. We will have to get a taxi to your nan's. If either of you have any cash." she managed to say before the next word of laughter robbed her breath of its rhythm and she folded over, trying to gain control. As her laughter turned very quickly to tears, and her son, her beautiful, beautiful son, held her upright. "Can I really go home?" Cleo asked the nurse, who had just taken her temperature and blood pressure. "Yup, you have had all clear from the doctor. You have showered. Been to the loo and the little one's doing well. We are all set. Do you think I should maybe stay a bit longer? Just to make sure everything is okay." "Everything is okay. There's no reason to keep you here." "It feels a bit quick." She felt conflicted, wanting to get out of the place and show her son off to the family, and also to get him back to the house in Swallow Drive so the life as a little family of three could begin. Yet simultaneously, she felt the flickering flame of fear rise in her gut at the thought of taking her son out of this building. Her mom straightened. "Because of the first thing we are going to do is cut down that gleaming rose and put little B's new shrub there instead." "Really? But just so there's no doubt, my sweet." Bernie coughed, and walking over to his wife, he held her arm. "I will chop it down. I'll do it right now, in fact. Sounds like a way to herald new life, new beginnings, the perfect plan." "I think so." Winnie Galloway kissed her husband lightly on the face, wiping the stray tears that escaped down her cheek as he did so. "And you don't know how I love a plan." And that's the ending of a story. It's not the complete story, obviously, so it's just not the complete ending, you guys know. I'm just give you a little bit of it about this book. You could, if you guys like this book, if you wanted to read it, because I like this book so much, I wanted to share this with you guys. So I just shared a little bit of it with you guys. But if you wanted to read it full completely, you can buy this from our website. That link is given below in the description box. So I hope you guys are enjoying all my videos. If you guys liked it, don't forget to press the like button on every video, and don't forget to press the subscribe button if you guys haven't subscribed it yet, and don't forget to press the bell icon so whenever I upload a new video you will get a notification. Okay, till then, take care. We will meet in the next video, in the next book. Please comment in the comment section that which book you guys want me to read next. Okay, should it be a funny book or horror, suspicious, helpful, about life, about anything it could be. So write it in the comment box. Till then, take care. Goodbye.